Okay. So I want to review and just fill out what we discussed last week, that Perek Membeis Pasuk Zayin. Yosef speaks koshes, spoke harshly to the brothers. Yeshaya Perek Yotes, which is a perek that corresponds to Miketz, where it talks about the Chachmei Mitzrayim, can't save Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim is going to be struck by a drought, and the river is going to dry up, and no one knows the Eitz of Hashem. There it says, in Pasuk Gimel, in Pasuk Daled, Zikarti es Mitzrayim biyad Adonim kosher. Perek Yotes, Yeshaya Pasuk Daled. Mitzrayim will be handed over into a harsh master, Umelech Az Yimshol Bo. And that's the downfall of Mitzrayim. And Yeshaya is described with this idea that Mitzrayim is going to be given to a Melech Kosher. Melech Az Adonim Kosher. So, similarly, as we discussed last week, Yosef, who comes to the aid of Mitzrayim here and props Mitzrayim up with his Ruach Elokim, as we discussed, the Ruach Elokim appears in Paro's dream because he dreams about the Shtufas Kodim, and the Kodim is the Ruach Hashem, and Yosef represents himself as being the Ruach Hashem who has a message for Paro, but the Kodim is called the Ruach HaKosher, as the pasuk said, Yeshaya Hogoi Beruach HaKosher B'Yom Kodim. It is the day of the Kodim, and the Kodim is Hashem's Ruach. That's Kosher. So Yosef, who comes to the aid of Paro with his Ruach, also introduces, or at least encourages, kashrus, harshness. And the downfall of Mitzrayim, as described in Yeshaya, is that there's going to be a Melech Adonim Kosher. So in fact, Mitzrayim's downfall came about because Paro had a leiv kosher, and the akshas leiv Paro. So as the pasuk says, that pasuk in Yeshaya, Adonim Kosher Melech Az Yimshol Bom. We spoke about the pasuk last week in Mishnah, which says Osher Ya'an Azos, meaning power leads to Azos, and power leads to harshness. So Yosef, who consolidated Mitzrayim's power, and at the one moment in Sefer Bereshis where Mitzrayim, land of Mitzrayim, which is the land of power, the land that always had the wealth, the one time where they were actually at risk of losing their wealth, Yosef secured them, and he made them true Ashirim, and therefore Az and Kosher. And therefore Paro is picked up on that his leiv was Kosher, and he suffered Vani Akshas leiv Paro, and he came out to the Yam Suf, and that's the Ruach HaKosher B'Yom Kodim, as it says over there, Vayinag Hashem B'Sar Yom B'Ruach Kodim Aza Kol Halayla, because the Ruach Kosher, the Ruach Aza, like it says Adonim Kosher and the Melech Az. Adonim Kosher and the Melech Az, his punishment is that he has a kashrus leiv even in the face of danger, and he faces the Ruach Kodim Aza Kol Halayla, and that's called the Yom Kodim in Yeshaya, that Hashem destroys Mitzrayim. The Yom Kodim, the day of the Kodim, as it says by the Yam Suf, Vahi Bashmar Sabayker, and that was the day of the Kodim, when Paro was wiped out. Okay. And all this was because, part of the story, of course, is that the Adonim Kosher of Mitzrayim placed Avodah Kosher on his people, so he's kosher, he's harsh. He's a harsh master. Okay, this is basically what we said last week, just putting it together. Now I want to add a few nekudas. Take a look at Mizmor Pei Aleph. So Mizmor Pei Aleph is the Mizmor about Yosef when he goes out to Mitzrayim, and we spoke about it last week. Before. Mamish corresponds to Miketz. You have to learn Miketz together with Mizmor Pei Aleph. And there it says about the Bnei Yisrael that they didn't listen to the voice of Hashem. Instead of listening to the Kol Hashem, Hashem left them b'shriros libam. Now, what does shriros libam mean? But as it says, sharir means tough, stubborn, as in Aramaic. Sharir v'kayom. Sharir means strong in Aramis. Others also explain it that way. So Shrivas Libam, Rashi consistently explains the word Shrivas Libam like B'Shrivas Libi Elech, in Parshat Nitzavim. Rashi always explains it in Lashon Ashur, to see. But the Ibn Ezra and others explain it in Lashon toughness, based on the Aramaic. So Vasharachir, and I'll show you that there's a reason to read it this way in the Mizmor. Vasharachir B'Shrivas Libam means that Hashem is inviting them. Mitzrayim is the place of the Adonim Kosher, and the king whose big downfall was that he had a kosher slave. So you have to come out of Mitzrayim and not be kosher. And as of course we know, the big taina against Klal Yisrael is always that they're kshei oref. So it means the problem with Mitzrayim is that they were kosher. That's the Nekudas HaTorah of Mitzrayim, is that they were kosher, Adonim Kosher, and the Melech Kosher Pari didn't recognize when he's facing danger and be careful. And you are taken out of Mitzrayim, and you're supposed to not be an Am Kshei Oref. But instead, it doesn't work, and we're kosher, and that's the big problem. Not to be kosher is a major, very, very important thing. Not to be kosher. It means to be sensitive, to be aware of the fact that there's something to be worried about, something to think about. And instead they had Shrivas Halev. They were kosher. Okay, now what I want to show you another place, another reason to believe that the Shrivas Lev corresponds to the Makshes Liboy. Because it says like this: we have Mizmor Pei Aleph, and we also have Mizmor Tzadik Hey. Everyone knows Mizmor Tzadik Hey is L'chud Ranana. I want to show you, I've been thinking about this for a very long time, which is that Mizmor Tzadik Hey, L'chud Ranana, corresponds to Mizmor Pei Aleph. So I want to walk you through this, through the parallels. L'chud Ranana L'Hashem is like Haninu L'Elokim Guzeinu. Nariya L'Tzu Yisheinu is like Hariyu L'Elokei Yaakov. Going back and forth here. And then it says, in Mizmor Tzadik Hey, we could be Hashem's Am. Anachnu Am Amar Isai Hayoim Mikodesh Shmo. Only we listen to His voice, and that's what it says in Mizmor Pei Aleph. Lu Am Yishmea L'Koili. V'lo Yishma Am L'Koili. Lu Am Yishmea Li. We could be Hashem's Am, but we have to listen to Him. And as it says in Mizmor Pei Aleph, we didn't listen to Him, so instead we have Shuras Halev. And in Mizmor Tzadik Hey it says Al Takshu Levavchem. So the Kashis Halev is what's necessary, or the opposite of Kashis Halev is necessary to be the Am Hashem. To be, Hashem invites us to come out of Mitzrayim and be His Am. But in order to do that, we have to, in order to hear His message, we can't be Makshed Halev, as we did by Meriva, and that's what it says in Mizmor Pei Aleph. Evchoncho al mei Meriva Sela, and Mizmor Tzadik Hey talks about the fact that we didn't know Hashem's ways, and similarly in Mizmor Pei Aleph it says, Yisrael, if only we would be Hoylech B'Darchei Hashem. Okay? And the other parallel is that in Mizmor Pei Aleph it talks about Evchoncho al mei Meriva Sela, and in Mizmor Tzadik Hey, B'Chanuni, we test Hashem. B'Chanuni, even though the Hashem's testing us, and we're testing Him. Okay? Kapanim, so that's just mechazik, the idea that Shrivas Libam is Takshu Levavchem, is the same thing. Shorir means tough. And leaving Mitzrayim is an invitation to leave the place that, look what happens when they Kshei Lev. Look what happens is Mitzrayim Pari was kosher, he was a Adonim Kosher. Because he was a Adonim Kosher, he immediately avoided the Kosher. He was a hard person, and a hard person is not open to receive the Ad Hashem. And he's going to deny the Ad Hashem, and he's going to have a tremendous downfall. So Anech Hashem L'kecha Machem Mitzrayim is recognized, don't be Kshei Lev. That's the ikar message of leaving Mitzrayim, don't be Kshei Lev. And therefore, when Hashem always has a time on us in the Midbar, no, they're Makshes Arpan. And not listening to Hashem is to be Hoylech B'Shuras Halev, to have that toughness of the Lev. Okay, now in Pasuk Zayin it says, just to review, we may have said this last week, Pasuk Zayin, Yosef spoke koshes, and he said ayin basam. Now, why is ma'ayin basam koshes? Why is that harsh? Because the message is that you don't belong here. You're not from here. You're from somewhere else, and you don't belong here. Otherwise, why are you asking ma'ayin basam? You could ask him, "What are you here for?" But no, he's asking ma'ayin basam. You're not from here. You don't belong here. And as we discussed in last week's shir, there's a whole focus over here about which aretz. Pasuk Vav repeats aretz 3 times. And they're coming from one Aretz to another Aretz, and the whole story of the whole theme, the whole idea of Eretz Canaan and Eretz Mitzrayim is that there's 2 kinds of Aretzes. Eretz Canaan is one type of Aretz, and Eretz Mitzrayim is another kind of Aretz, and they came from one to the other. And Yosef says, you don't belong here. This is not your kind of Aretz. And they said, it's true, it's not our kind of Aretz, lish ba'eichel, but we need food. Now, I want to bring this even deeper. Mitzrayim is kosher to them, right? In other words, Yosef is harsh to them because he says, you're not from here. What's the harshness? The harshness is, this is Mitzrayim, and you guys are not from here. You don't belong here. What's the difference between Eretz Canaan and Eretz Mitzrayim? The difference between Eretz Canaan and Mitzrayim is that Eretz Canaan does not have the havtacha of wealth. So what the pasuk says, this kashius that Mitzrayim has, which is that they have asher yana azus, that they have the power, when that comes up against Canaan, so they act tough to Canaan, because you're from Canaan, you're the soft people, you're the ones who might be poor, you could have a rav, and we're here in Mitzrayim, we don't have a rav, and that contrast between Mitzrayim and Eretz Canaan, those two aratzes, when those two aratzes come face to face, that's kosher. The response is kosher. We're the asher, you're the tachnun midav rosh, you come begging and saying, no, lish ba'eichel, we just need food. And Mitzrayim is the asher yana azus, says, this land is better than your land, and therefore it leads to this kosher, and the kosher is expressed in me'ayin basar. Okay, fine. And so in other words, what I'm saying is like this: when Yosef says to them, he says kosher is me'ayin basar. Right there, we see that Eretz Canaan is different than Eretz Mitzrayim, and Eretz Canaan has a different way, different approach to earning their bread, and their approach is, as we discussed in some previous shurim, the approach of Eretz Canaan, the approach of Bnei Yisrael to earn their lechem is v'hayim shamoya, and his words Hashem is yirev v'sam yachal v'chastoi. In ma'idin anovim Hashem mashbol sham adeotz, the baligaiva get lowered and the anovim get raised. And here Yosef is acting with gaiva because he's speaking koshes, and the mahalach of Eretz Canaan is, as it says in Vizbuk Kufam Zayin, words Hashem is yirev, and Hashem is going to send the rain when you are an onav, and the rush is going to be lowered. But so that's what's really happening in this passage. They could have turned around and said, look at this guy, he's kosher, he's a rasha, let Hashem lower him to the Aretz, and we taka don't need him. We're going to go back to Canaan. But they said no. They said, Me'eretz Canaan lish ba'eichel, meaning we're here, we left the land of Canaan, we're not doing the Canaan thing anymore. We can't, because they're not Yirei Hashem. As we discussed, they lost the Ruach. They had to do it in the Derech of Basav Adam, which is Guras Asus and Shekeh Ish. So Me'eretz Canaan lish ba'eichel, we are now accepting, even though we're taka not from here, we're from a different culture, a different world. Our world is a world which is not kosher because we're susceptible to Rav. But now we're being nichna to you. We have no other way. David, could you pass me a cup of water, please? Okay, so that's what's happened. That's what happened till now. Pasuk Ches v'yakei Yosef es echav v'hem lo yikiruhu, as I mentioned last week, but I won't deal with this more because I don't have what to say. There's a big question over here what the connection is between Pasuk Ches and Pasuk Zayin. Right, it already says Vayakirim, and he spoke to them cautious. What is this adding? I have nothing to say about this. You can look at the first and people to talk about it. Thank you. Just watch the wire. Yosef remembered the dreams that he dreamt lahem. This lahem is an interesting word. Some say it means alehem. Question is what lahem could mean that. Vayoyma aleim meragelim atem lirois es ervas haaretz bas. Okay, so very strange pasuk. He remembers his dreams, and therefore he tells them that the meraglim, and they're here to see the ervas haaretz. So what is he talking about? Now, there's obviously one simple way to ask this question is, what does this even mean? The Ramban asks this, like, what type of business is that to just claim a raglam at them? There had to be some reason. In other words, simple from their perspective, right? They walk in, they're here for food, and he's like, oh, raglam at them. On what basis? Doesn't make any sense. So I'm not going to talk about that. I want to talk about a different aspect here. What is the hemshech? He remembers the chaloimis, and he tells them a raglam at them. And also, what does ervas haaretz mean? This concept, this term ervas haaretz doesn't appear anywhere else except for this parsha. So first of all, just what do the words mean? What does ervas mean? What does ervas haaretz mean? So I want to say a few pshat in front of Rishonim. Rashi says ervas means the weakness, the weak point, where it could be, where you can come overpower it through there. The Rashbam says it means of the pirtzis, and it's based on a pasuk in Shai Perek Yutes, significantly. We'll see that pasuk soon. Where the Rashbam reads it to mean the places that there's cracks, that it could be broken into. According to Bnei Ezra, ervas means that which is shameful of the aretz. You're going to see what's shameful of the aretz,
or what's hidden. Or the part of the earth that people hide, that we hide, and no one's supposed to see, you're here to see that. Okay? So now, he's charging them with something that they're coming to look at something. They're Mרגלים, and they want to see the Erva Saaretz. Okay. Now, I want to, like I said, really there's one level you have to talk about this in Pshat. What are they even thinking? What kind of claim is this? On what basis is he making this claim? But I want to approach this from a different angle, and I want to show that this Taina that the Mרגלים, and they're here to see the Erva Saaretz, actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, and let's start with Yeshaya Perek Yutes, where, as I mentioned, Rashbam points out that we have in that Perek, which is about the downfall of Mitzrayim, and about the Mitzrayim having a Rav. Then we have in Perek Yutes, Pasuk Zayin, we have this word Orois. Orois. Okay, Perek Yutes in Yeshaya, Masa Mitzrayim, Pasuk Zayin. Orois al Yaor, al Pi Yaor. So next to the Yaor, Orois. Orois. What does that mean, that word Orois there? Everything next to the Yaor is Orois, and all the Mizrah Yaor is dried up. Pasuk ends. So that Orois, says the Ibn Ezra, means stripped. Everything, meaning the shore of the Yaor was stripped bare. All the vegetation that grows next to the Yaor was stripped bare because everything dried up, as the pasuk ends, and therefore all the fishermen are sad, etc., etc. Okay, so Mitzrayim, we're in Yeshaya Perek Yutes, it talks about this drought in Mitzrayim, where the river dries up, and then everything along the Yaor is going to be stripped bare. Okay, so on the basis of that, then we would read this pasuk very simply. When Yosef tells them, you're coming to see the Erva Saaretz, you're coming to see the Eretz Mitzrayim stripped bare, so he actually has a point here. He's saying, look, that's what's happening here now. Right? There's a hunger, and you guys want to see Mitzrayim bare. Okay, you want to see Mitzrayim naked. You want to see Mitzrayim lose everything on it. Now, it's not a crazy thing, because let me show you this. Because the fact is, ultimately, the pasuk says, "We tzaltem etz Mitzrayim." We dispolled Mitzrayim. We took everything out of Mitzrayim. And Israel did take everything out of Mitzrayim. And this is just a little bit of tushta, so we can empty out Mitzrayim. And in Hosea, Perek Beis, Hosea Perek Beis, pasuk Yud Aleph, talking about how Hashem made Klal Yisrael wealthy. The previous pasuk is v'chesef hirbesi la v'zav osu labal, which is talking about Bizas Mitzrayim. And since we abused it and used it for Avodah Zarah, says pasuk Perek Beis pasuk Yud Aleph, Hashem is going to take it back. V'yitzalti tzarmi yefeshi l'chasis esavasa. The tzemar and pishtim that Hashem bestowed upon us in order to cover our nakedness, Hashem is going to take it back. V'yitzalti. So v'yitzaltem es Mitzrayim, we took the clothing from Mitzrayim, we made Mitzrayim bare, we despoiled Mitzrayim, we made it bare. So Yosef is charging the brothers with saying, you are here because you are very interested in this possibility of Mitzrayim being laid bare. Okay, fine. Now, I want to show you why that's the case. Why it's actually the case. So what I'm saying is like this. What I'm just stressing is, I'm sort of approaching the pasuk backwards because I'm just pointing out something very, very significant, and then we could read this back into the pasuk. We'll have to think about that. My point, the thing I'm pointing out is that the brothers of Yosef do have a great interest in Mitzrayim being laid bare, as he charged, and that they are Mרגלים for that. He's not saying a crazy thing. They are actually Mרגלים who care very much about Mitzrayim being laid bare. And here's why. As we mentioned last week, and a few weeks, keep on mentioning this. The pasuk says in the Devarim that Eretz Mitzrayim is not like Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because in Eretz Mitzrayim there can't be a Rav. Ki Eretz Yisrael takom shel Mishla, Eretz Mitzrayim hi Asher tizeh zaycha v'shkisa z'ragel gana york Asher takom shel Mishla, Eretz Hamagosam tar shamayim tishtem. Therefore Hashem is doirish Eiset Tomidin Eshel Lekech Mishla Lach Hashan Avayim Shemay Tishma Mitzvayis. So again, to repeat the obvious, had there been a Rav in Mitzrayim, had this story gone,
Pari has a dream, there's going to be a Rav. And Yosef would have told him, yes, there's going to be a Rav, and there's nothing you can do, and Mitzrayim is over. Had that happened, we wouldn't have this pasuk in Sefer Dvarim that says Mitzrayim is not like Eretz Canaan. Mitzrayim is a good place where there's always water. I mean, a safe place where there's always water. And that's Canaan. There may or may not be water, so you need to be zeicher in it. So the Sefer Bereshis, where there's a Rav, Ahi Rav Barat, and you go down to Mitzrayim, is the background for the pasukim in Dvarim. Say, look, there's a difference between Eretz Canaan and Mitzrayim. In other words, the stories of Bereshis, it's not just that the stories prove that, but the actual history of the difference between Mitzrayim and Canaan is what gives Eretz Canaan its character, as opposed to Mitzrayim too. The fact that it happened. It's not. I'm not just saying that. Oh, had something else happened, we wouldn't have had that puzzle. I'm saying Eretz Canaan, it's like Eretz Mitzrayim, is that look, we're following in the ways of the Ovis that they had this experience. It's a Canaan experience and a Mitzrayim experience, and they didn't like Mitzrayim, and this not liking Mitzrayim, it goes back to Parshas Lech Lecha. The Hainu. Parshas Lech Lecha, where there's a Rav, where Hashem told Avram, Lech Lecha Tzareka. When did Hashem show him the Aretz? After he went down to Mitzrayim and came back. And like was nifrad me'imay. Hashem Amar Avram Achrei Parad Me'imay Sona Einecha Re'eh, says the Ben Ezra Arachem. That's when Hashem did Areka. So till then, it wasn't yet muchra what the Aretz Asherek is going to be. Maybe it's Mitzrayim. Maybe it'll be Mitzrayim. Avram goes down to Mitzrayim, and no, you know what? Mitzrayim is not so interesting. Mitzrayim is a place where there's no Rav, but because there's no Rav, the king could do terrible things. He could take Sarah, and still his parnas is great. He's still a place of wealth. So therefore, the Mitzrayim is not the place of Areka. Rather, we have to go back to Eretz Canaan. And Lot doesn't learn the lesson, so he takes the place that is Keretz Mitzrayim, Kigan Hashem Keretz Mitzrayim. And Avram says, I'll take the rest of Eretz Canaan, which is like Eretz Mitzrayim. And this is the special. Now Eretz Yisrael becomes special. This is what's special, is that there's a place that's like Eretz Mitzrayim. So the story in Parshas Lech Lecha is the same thing that says in Sefer Dvarim. The difference between Eretz Canaan and Eretz Mitzrayim is that there's a Rav, and therefore in Eretz Canaan is a place of Haim Shemaya, and that's what Avram chose, or created, or discovered in Parshas Lech Lecha, that there has to be a land that's all of Haim Shemaya, and not the land where Vayelech Avram and Vayiros Asari Pari, Vatukach Yishubeis Pari, and Pari still didn't have a Rav. Other Rav, which is the place where it saves you from the Rav. That's not a place. That's not the Eretz Shavak. Okay. So now, when Avram went down to Mitzrayim, he's going to see if Eretz Mitzrayim can be Eretz Canaan. So now, okay, the Shvatim, now Yosef goes to Mitzrayim, and basically Yosef, by coming to the rescue of Pari and by joining forces with Pari, he made that Mitzrayim was not Eretz Canaan. And as we've been discussing, there's a major machlekes between Yosef and the brothers. The brothers, Yosef is a cholim chalamis. The reason why, let me just tell you this, you weren't here, that why the brothers kill Yosef, or why they want to kill him. What it says in Parashat Vayeshev is basically, in so many words, is that they want to kill him because he's a cholim chalamis. And he mixes chalamis with dvarim, and dvarim means nevuah. The dvar Hashem is called the davar. And Yosef mixes, as it says in Yirmiyah, don't mix chalamis with dvar Hashem, don't mix tevim with bar. And Yosef, who's dreaming about bar, he's going to eventually take care of the bar. It's also mixing tevin, which means we're going to go down to Mitzrayim for lechem, but we're going to end up busy with the tevin and then the Sefer Parshas Shmos and avoid the kasha and yigia and so on and so forth. The point is that Yosef is mixing chaloimus with devarim. That means he's coming to the Shvatim and talking about the future, and he's talking about it through dreams. And the Shvatim want to talk about it through the Dvar Hashem. They're not interested in dreams. And what that really means is that dreams are the way that we can deal with the future even without nevuah, which means even without the idea of the future. A chaloim doesn't make Yosef know what's going to happen. A chaloim makes Yosef act because of what he expects to happen, even though it's not a nevuah. That's not the main point. I should have stressed it. The main point is chaloim is not nevuah. And the brothers don't like Yosef because how can we not doing nevuah? How can we not looking for the Dvar Hashem that's goloi? And the reason why Yosef is not doing that is because Yosef knows he's going to be a godless person. He has a different role. His role is not to communicate with Hashem begoloi and do nevuah. His role is to do something else. His role is to be maftiach shloim paray and to work as a mitzvah and so on and so forth. Okay. So Bekitza, Yosef is a godless person. And he knows he's a God's person. And when he grows up, he's a God's person because he's not doing Nevuah, he's doing Chalomis. And that's why the Shvatim are going to kill him. What are you doing? What are you doing having Chalomis? Let's have Nevuah. What type of business is this? That you come to us to Chalomis and telling us that this is Shemuna. This is how we know how to live. That's not how we live. Okay? That's what I want to kill him. So now, we get to Yosef is pro-Golos, let's say. Meaning Yosef believes Mitzrayim should be Mitzrayim. And he comes to Paray, and Mitzrayim's about to become like Eretz Yisrael because it's about to be hit with a Rav. And Yosef's like, no, Shlaim Paray. Everything's going to be fine. I'm going to be the one who could support, could create, go Chutz La'aretz. I'm going to make this place be Chutz La'aretz instead of it potentially becoming Eretz Yisrael. Now, if that's the case, so let's look in Yeshaya Perek Tes. In Yeshaya Perek Tes, it says Mitzrayim is going to have a Rav. Finally, Mitzrayim is going to dry up. It's not going to happen eventually. Even though, meaning what happened in our story is that it happened, but Yosef basically neutralized it because it didn't matter because he stockpiled the grains. Everything was fine. But in Yeshaya Perek Tes, it says everything's going to be dried up, right? We saw that pasuk Ketayim. Everything next to the river is going to be stripped bare, and everyone's going to be depressed because no one knew that's Hashem. We are Yechachamim. None of Yechacham could have predicted what's happening. And this time, apparently, Yosef is not going to come to the rescue. So what's going to happen? Pasuk Yud Ches is in Perek Tes in Yeshaya. Bayoymahu yiyu chamesh aros be'etz Mitzrayim medabris vas kanam nishbos Hashem tzavakis. Finally, Mitzrayim is going to pledge allegiance to Hashem. They're going to speak the language of Canaan, and this, as we discussed, Yosef went out and Sfas lo yadati eshma, and he says Chei Paroi. Instead, they're finally going to turn around, and they're going to swear by Hashem. And one of them is Ira Harris. We spoke about this by Kayin Ein. Yosef married the daughter of the Kayin Ein. Fine, I have to go into it. And there's going to be Mizbeach la Hashem, and Mitzrayim is going to dive into Hashem, and V'yadu Mitzrayim es Hashem. Amazing. Yadu Mitzrayim as Hashem. How? How is this going to happen? Because they're going to be Hashem is going to smite them, and then He's going to heal them, and they're going to discover Hashem. They're going to discover Hashem, and the parak culminates. The climax is that Hashem blesses him and says, "Baruch Ami Mitzrayim." So Mitzrayim is going to become the Am Hashem. Okay, amazing. Mitzrayim is going to be Am Hashem. So. There's Lu Am Yishemeli. Who's the Am Hashem? We're supposed to be the Am Hashem. We're supposed to come out of Mitzrayim and be the Am Hashem, right? Because Mitzrayim is not the place to be the Am Hashem. The reason why Mitzrayim is not the place to be the Am Hashem is because Yosef made it so, or meaning because it says in Perek Tes and Yeshaya, okay, one time Mitzrayim is Taka going to get a Rav, and it's Taka be Nogoif. They really have to have Nogoif, and then they could get Rafai, and then they're going to recognize Hashem, then they're going to swear in the name of Hashem, they're going to use Be'ech Hashem, and they're going to be Yodu es Hashem, which is like it says by Klai, so Yodu es Hashem, right? Yishudu Hashem. And finally they're going to know it, and they're going to be called Ami. Okay? So then it seems that actually the brothers are Meraglem here, and are very interesting in seeing the Avasaretz. Because the Mamash Meraglim, like the Meraglim went to the land of Canaan, like maybe this could be Eretz Canaan. So, like Avram, he went when Vahiva of Baratz, he had from Mitzrayim because Chavod Rav. It's also he's Meragl. He's going to see maybe this could be Eretz Canaan. And Taka, when Mitzrayim will have, when the Ervas Arts, when the arts will be stripped bare, Mitzrayim will, in fact, be the land of Canaan. So Yosef was like, hey, you guys, you're big Canaan. I'm a Mitzri. Yosef was a Mitzri. He's very happy with Mitzrayim being not Eretz Canaan. But he remembers his dreams and the fact that they are not masking to his dreams. They're not masking to his dreams. They don't want, they don't mask him to Golas. They want Nevuah. They hold that everything on Haga has to be on Haga of Eretz Yisrael. So what do you guys want then? He's like, you want everything the opposite of what I'm doing here. You want this land to be stripped bare. And I'm the one who is protecting Mitzrayim from being stripped till there's nothing left. Because even though there's a Rav, I save the Tuah. Right?
But he's going with his Chalmish Shechram, it's much of these remembering what happened inside the dreams, you know?
Right? He remembered the content of the dreams. Yeah. You have to figure out that Lahem. That's how I pointed out that Lahem is strange. To think more about that pasuk, what does it mean? What does it mean? Chalam Lahem. How you Chalam Lahem? What does it mean? Rashi says Lahem. So we have to look into that. I have to think about that. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, I'm not doing this psukim justice because it wasn't medayek the psukim well enough, and the stages in the pasuk and what exactly is Yosef arguing to them. But I'm just bringing it from a little bit from the outside over here, that the taina that the Meragelim and that they care about the Eretz Oretz actually stands. They are very interested in seeing, right? Who's not interested in having Mitzrayim be called Ami, and Mitzrayim being Nishba b'Shem Hashem Tzavakis and Davis Fas Canaan? Wonderful, it's great. That's what everyone wants. So if that's your agenda, and Mitzrayim is almost there, then Yosef says, "Oh, I know what you guys want. You don't like what I'm doing here." And they said, "No, we're here. It's okay. We just want food. We're not coming to usurp you. On the contrary." But the whole aretz in pasuk pasuk vav, the aretz, right? The whole idea that there's two types of aratzes and me'ayin basem is Eretz Canaan and Eretz Mitzrayim, and Yosef is trying to hold on to Eretz Mitzrayim and make it not be Eretz Canaan. So the simple thing, when he tells him, he tells him you're spies and you want to capture. What does that mean? Even simple. Oh, yeah, somehow some theory over here that they're working for Canaan to infiltrate Mitzrayim. I don't know. And capture Mitzrayim. Okay, fine. So I'm saying it's taka. The whole question of whether Mitzrayim is going to be like the land of Canaan is totally in this parasha. And the brothers, whose shita is the Eretz Yisrael shita, that we have to be alol to Rav so that we can have a Chaim Shemaya and fear Hashem and so on and so forth. They're very interested in the fact that Mitzrayim is just about there and is about to become strip beer, and that's going to make it like Eretz Canaan. Now, one important thing. It's interesting lashon ervas aretz. Ervas aretz is not a good thing. Meaning, do we talk about Eretz Yisrael and say ervas aretz because Eretz Yisrael could be stripped beer, so it's murdik as ervas aretz about not. But the pshat is this is Yosef's perspective. In other words, let me put it this way. We don't have to look up this psukim, but it says in Yirmiyah where it talks about the river coming up. The river of Mitzrayim comes up and is mechasa the aretz. We spoke about this psukim in Amos also, that the Nile River was supposed to overflow and cover the aretz. So Yosef is really keeping the aretz covered, meaning Hagam the Nile River didn't overflow and didn't create the vegetation. But Yosef has figured out a way to keep the last year's, the 7 years vegetation, and Ilu there's chatzir on the aretz, whatever. So from Yosef's perspective, the fact they want the aretz to be beer, it's an erva, because he holds it's a good thing. No, if you believe in Eretz Yisrael, you don't say Eretz Aretz. But if you want Eretz Mitzrayim to be like Eretz Yisrael, and Yosef doesn't want that, so Yosef's like, oh, you still want it to be naked. Right?
Chachma had to be mechas to the Paris.
What?
His Chachma was had to be mechas to the Paris effectively in order to preserve them. How to be mechasa, how to cover the Paris in the proper ground.
Why do we cover it?
Midrashim say that he put it in the proper ground where it grew, and that's what preserved it.
Okay.
Meaning, Eretz Aretz is if it's not covered, if it's not mechusa, if it's begulis, then the Paris will rot.
Right, interesting.
And there's no way of preserving the Paris throughout the road.
You mean so even though you're saying if the Paris themselves are just begaloi.
With the kisui, Yosef's chap was gufa in the kisui. You take that away, then it's going to be the Eretz Aretz. You uncover it,
excellent.
And it's exposed in the ground, and the whole Mitzrayim disintegrates.
Very good. Yosef figured out a way to do a kisui. Interesting. Okay, I have to think more about that. Just as another point like this. So now, think about this. I once heard this, but I didn't find Makars for it. Okay, so there's Ervas Aretz, right? There's the nakedness or the revealedness, and then there's Glois Aretz. The pasuk says this idea of Glois Aretz. It says in Sefer Shoftim that the pesel was in Micha, the pesel Micha was there and done, and Yoim Glois Aretz. Now, if someone once told me, and I looked this up and I couldn't find it, that what is Glois Aretz? So first of Gilui Ever, of course, right? So Glois Aretz is that when the nation leaves the land becomes exposed. That's what someone told me. I don't know if it's true. That Golus, that's what Golus means. That the land becomes like the erva. It's Gilui erva, right? So Gilui erva, meaning that you want the land to be susceptible to Avadatem Mehera. Like, right? You want the land to become a land that could be stripped bare of its vegetation and therefore of its people, right? That's what it says in Vayim Shemaya. Because if there's ervas aretz, the aretz is exposed, then the people have to leave it too, and it's glois aretz. Okay, but it's just interesting, is that so if ervas, I mentioned before that ervas aretz is not a term that we have anywhere else, but actually glois aretz maybe is the same idea, that the aretz becomes naked. So now that brings us to the end of Pasha of Achreimais, where there's Gilui Erva. There's Gilui Erva, right? You can't be Megala Erva. And what happens if you're Megala Erva? Kamase Eretz Mitzrayim. V'loisaki Eretz Eretz Yisrael, not Mekayim Eretz Erva. Mela Mitzrayim, they did this, they did Gilui Erva. And everything was fine. And this takes us back to Pari. Pari took Sarah. And that's what they do in Mitzrayim, the Megala Erva. And nothing happens in Mitzrayim. And that's why Mitzrayim is such a terrible place. And that's why the Eretz Sharek is Canaan, where you have to listen to Hashem, or else what? Which it says in Parashat Achim, but that's why it's probably the same thing.
Taki is also Lashon of being thrown out from your kisa.
Is it? Taki? Why?
Taki is the Lashon of being expunged, isn't it?
Yeah, but not about kisa. It's not about...
No, it means you're thrown out of the kisa.
Right. So there won't be anything left.
Exactly. Meaning you take off your Megal Erva,
right, exactly.
And the Eretz is Megal Erva.
Exactly. So if you're Megal Erva... No, people are Megal Erva, then the Eretz will become
Taki Estem, it takes away your kisa.
Right.
Now you're also
But what's Vayinaga is only a small thing?
Oh, no, 1 second. So Vayinaga is... We'll get to it in a minute. No, Vayinaga is that the Eretz was fine. It's not... Nothing in the Eretz had a... There's no mechanism within the country. So therefore what? Therefore, even if he has a personal punishment, it doesn't affect the whole Holach Yelich of the Aretz, if it's not built into the nature to the weather system. So if you're Megal, so what it's saying in the end of Parashat Achim is if someone's Megala Erva, if you're Megala Erva, then Kamase Eretz Mitzrayim, then Canaan is different, and it's not Mekayim Sagaver, and it's going to be Meki. So this is exactly what's happening over here. They went out to Mitzrayim, Avram went into Mitzrayim, and part of Megala Erva, and nothing happens. But if that's Canaan, you can't be Megala Erva, something's going to happen. And Yosef is saying, you guys are trying to make Mitzrayim a place where you can't be Megala Erva. And I, says Yosef, consider that Erva Asaretz. In other words, for me that's an Erva because I want Mitzrayim to be Mechusah, right? He doesn't hold this Malach, so that's a shameful thing. But eventually is what's going to happen. As it says in Sefer Yeshaya, no go for Rafa, when Mitzrayim will be indeed smitten, then when Taka happens, then they will come back and Yadus Hashem, and then they'll become like Canaan. Okay, so again, just to repeat, I still have to learn the psukim. This is sort of not learning the psukim, just realizing that there's something, maybe bigger thing going on over here, which is part of the whole fact 2 days for the brothers. And as David pointed out, you have to read those words about Cholam Lahem well, and the middle part of Vayakar V'hem Lo Yikuv. I forget what that means also. Okay, that'll be all.
Now Shemai